Fritz Henderson has resigned as the chief executive of General Motors. Having run United States' biggest automaker for less than a year, Henderson's departure now puts all of Detroit's big three manufacturers in the hands of outsiders. The men and women who run the world's second largest car maker want faster restructuring, and they want the results ASAP. Sources say Henderson's abrupt departure was at the direct behest of the board, and that GM has already begun looking for a replacement. The move underscores the tough oversight being exerted by a slate of new GM directors led by the interim CEO, Ed Whittaker.
Fritz has done a remarkable job leading the company through an unprecedented period of challenge and change. And momentum has been building in our company over the past several months, but we all agreed that some changes needed to be made going forward. To this end, I have taken over the role of chairman and CEO, while a search for a new president and CEO begins immediately.
The U.S. government owns 60% of equity in General Motors, as well as $10 billion in debt. Washington is keen to protect its investment, and the Obama administration has repeatedly said that it is leaving the oversight of the company to Whittaker and the board. General Motors has emerged from bankruptcy much leaner and focused to produce cheaper, smaller, and more fuel-efficient vehicles.
I'd like to take this opportunity to assure all our employees, our dealers, our suppliers, our union partners, and most of all, our customers, that GM's daily business operations will continue as normal.
In Europe, GM's board shifted course on a planned sale of the Opel unit, a deal Henderson had backed and helped broker. Okay, joining us from New York on the phone is John Wilkonowitz, auto analyst at IHS Global Insight. John, morning, great to have you on the show. Okay, so the board gets its way, but can a new CEO, what can it do for General Motors, which really exists in a rather struggling auto market? Also, what sort of profile are they looking for in a new CEO?
I think they're looking for someone who can destroy the corporate culture within General Motors. General Motors, as did all the American auto companies, has a very strong corporate culture. I think Mr. Whittaker and the board believe that that corporate culture needs to be eradicated, and that probably the reason why Mr. Henderson was removed was because he was not eradicating that corporate culture fast enough. Of course, he was a GM insider.
Of course, I mean, destroying the corporate culture, but Mr. Henderson wasn't really doing anything wrong, though he was trying to sell off Opel in Europe, which the board basically nixed in the last minute.
Right. But again, the corporate culture issue is fundamental because it permeates the whole company. It permeates people through the whole company, which means that in many cases, the decisions being made would still be from the old point of view. And I think that's something that the U.S. government, as well as the new board of directors at General Motors, wants to be sure is changed.
And that's just it, right, John? Because the U.S. government owns something like 60% of equity in GM, is also plus billions of dollars in debt. When does Washington exit the car maker? What sort of global player will GM finally become?
I think Washington will exit when they feel that GM has returned to health, when GM sells stock to the public. I actually think the chances for GM being very successful are very high. I've seen many of the new products GM has coming over the next 4 years. They're truly spectacular products. I think from a product standpoint, GM has its act together. Their challenge is to convince the American public that these are truly high-quality products. And their other challenge is to be sure that they can keep producing this kind of product and do it in a very cost-effective manner. And that's the reason why I think the corporate culture needs to change.
And how will, I mean, that's very interesting. How will GM sort of beat the Japanese at selling cars in the United States, also the Koreans, which are extraordinarily successful as well?
They need to create products that are more appealing than what the Japanese and the Koreans provide to the American car-buying public. And, you know, I really think that GM and Ford as well are well along the way to doing that. But then the second part of that is the product may be appealing, but you have to convince the customer that the quality is there, that the cars will be reliable and durable over a long period of time. Something they believe is true of Japanese cars, but hasn't been as true for American cars over the last 20 years.
Certainly, John, last question. Of course, they're looking for an outsider, so to speak, to run General Motors. Any idea, any thoughts who that person could be?
No, I don't have any thoughts at all on that. I think it could be anyone. I mean, Alan Mulally, for example, at Ford, who has worked out so well, was a surprise pick. I think they will probably take someone from outside the auto industry, but probably from inside manufacturing. Someone with a background like Mulally would be my guess. Again, because that situation has worked out so well at Ford Motor Company.
Okay, John, thank you very much. Looking forward to better times for General Motors. We're speaking with John Wilkonowitz, auto analyst at IHS Global, on the phone in New York.